Okay, welcome to Confirmation at Light of the Hills. We're going to do Lesson 16 today. It's the 9th and 10th Commandments. But we're going to start with prayer, so let's do that. Heavenly Father, we thank you for giving us the commandments, the guidelines you have for us about how to live. They convict us of our sin. They remind us how much we need a Savior. They keep us from trouble and harm, and they also show us how to live. And so we pray today that you would give us wisdom as we listen and learn. In Jesus' name, amen. I'm not sick, I just have allergies, so hopefully it'll stay that way. Okay, who would like to read on the top of page 65 the 9th commandment and its meaning? All right, Emma, we'll just go this way, and we'll do Caroline next.
You shall not covet your neighbor's house. We should fear and love God so that we do not scheme to get our neighbor's inheritance or house, or to get it in a way which only appears right, but help and be of service to him in keeping it. Okay, we're going to talk about coveting in just a minute, so what that means. But what does it mean to scheme?
Like, to have an evil plot.
Yeah, an evil plot, right? If you've seen The Grinch That Stole Christmas, and the Jim Carrey version is kind of funny that way, where you got a scheme. Yep. Okay, and then by the way, we'll talk about what coveting means, but a very short definition is coveting means to want something, desire something that's somebody else's. Okay? All right, and then the 10th commandment. Caroline, would you read that?
You shall
and its meaning.
Not covet your neighbor's wife or his manservant or maidservant, his ox or donkey, or anything else that belongs to your neighbor. What does this mean? We should fear and love God so that we do not entice,
yep,
or force away our neighbor's wife, workers, or animals, or turn against him, but urge them to say and do their duty.
Okay, what does it mean to entice? Anybody know? That's not a word we use too often.
Put them away.
Nope. Entice. Persuade. It's close to persuade. Entice would be, you walk in to, let's see, what would it be? So you walk into school, and you should get to class, but your friend is there, and he's got like a giant maple donut.
I had a donut today.
You got time? That would be enticing you, right? So entice means to present something as like, oh yeah, that would really be great if I had that, when they probably shouldn't have that. Okay? So entice away from your neighbor, like employees or something, where it's like, hey, you should come work for my company. Now, people do all kinds of stuff like that today, but the Bible would tell us we should be very honest and open about that, not secretive and scheming. Okay, so consider this. The big question, is it okay to want something you don't have? You have to answer yes or no. There's no maybes or what ifs. So is it okay to want something you don't have? Yes or no? How many of you say yes? Raise your hand. How many of you say no? Raise your hand. You have to answer. So most of you say no. Why did you say yes? It's okay to want something you don't have.
It's okay to want something, but that doesn't mean you should try and get it in a dishonest way.
Very true.
Say I want this can of Army Men, I'd buy it with my money.
That's right.
Try and buy it off Amazon.
So it's okay to want something, and you might go buy it. Nothing wrong with that at all. But if Tim has what you're wanting, and then it's like, well, maybe I could somehow get that. Yeah, then it's wrong.
Somehow murder him.
Yeah, that would be 2 commandments at once, wouldn't it? In fact, at the end of this lesson, it's going to show us how all 10 commandments are kind of connected to this one. It's very, very interesting. All right, Mia, would you read the next 2 paragraphs underneath that box that I just read from?
The question seems simple on the surface, but deep down it's not at all. Knowing what we need or want to have is not bad. So what is a sinful desire? In the circle to the right, write or sketch some things you need in order to survive.
Okay, so inside the circle, write some things you need. You can put food because they already gave you one answer. So write down some things that you would say are needs, not wants, but needs. Okay, so what did you guys come up with? What are some needs? Tim?
Water.
Water is a good one. What?
Air.
Air.
Roof over your head.
A roof over your head. Yeah, so food, shelter. What's the other one of the big three that you learn about social studies?
Water.
Somebody already said water. Don't say water.
Wait, we learned in social studies?
Yeah, you learn in social studies. What are the three basic needs every human being needs? Food, shelter.
Money. No.
No, you can survive without money. What about in the winter when it's cold? What do you need?
Clothes.
Clothing. That's right. Food, shelter, and clothing are the three bigs that you learn about in social studies.
And water.
Yeah, well, I think they include that with food. But you're right. Yeah, water is essential. We can go, I think, 2 to 3 days without water, and then we die.
But you can't go what?
You can go a long time without food.
Yeah.
If you fast, I mean, some people have gone like 30 years.
30 years without food?
I'm sorry, not 30 years, 30 days.
I was like, 30 years?
I'm not tired, not me. Oh boy, that's a bad one. Yeah, 30 days.
Like,
Did you know though, do you guys know what ticks are? Because if you have a dog, you probably know what ticks are.
Yeah, I know what ticks are.
So, when we got our first dog, when we moved up here 20 some years ago, we got a dog, and it was great. We took her down to Folsom Lake, and she got ticks on her, so we took them off. But I did some research on ticks back then. They can go 3 years without eating. 3 years they can sit on a bush.
oh,
Nasty critters. Okay, now, and outside the circle, write or sketch some things you want, but don't really need in order to survive. So that would be like an Xbox. It would be like
cell phone.
cell phone. Yeah. Also the things you want, but you don't need. All right, what did you guys come up with? Somebody, each of you, give me one. What? Give me
Throwing
one.
axes.
What?
Throwing axes.
Yes.
Talked about that one.
Mia?
Money.
Money? Okay. Tim?
Apple Watch.
An Apple Watch?
Computers.
Computers.
Cell phone.
Cell phone? Caroline?
I was going to say that.
Did you write anything else down? Couldn't think of anything else you wanted, huh? Boy, you're good. Books, right. Books are good, books are great, but
Animals.
yeah, pets.
I mean, unless you're blind, then you kind of need a dog. But
Yeah, that would be more of a need than a want, you're right.
Yeah.
Although you could survive if you had people to help you all the
Yeah.
time.
Isn't there some people in the world that like do a thing where they don't eat?
But they don't eat
Fasting.
What he said?
for some time. Fasting? Yeah, Christians fast. I fast sometimes. Not as much as I should probably, but it's a great discipline. It teaches you in the time that you would prepare the food, eat the food, and clean up after the food, like let's just say an hour. That's all time that you spend in the Word of God in the Bible. And you read slowly and thoughtfully in the Bible and pray. That's fasting. And you can do it. Sometimes I'll just do it for one meal, so I'll skip lunch. And I'll eat breakfast and I won't eat till dinner, and I'm really hungry by then. But that hour at lunch I'll spend in the Word of God. Some people do it for 30. In fact, I've got a youth event that I'm thinking about. It's called the 30-hour famine. It's a fundraiser for people who are suffering from hunger. And you don't eat for 30 hours. I did that when I was in high school.
30 hours.
That's a long time to go, yeah. So, you have to look at your health, make sure you're healthy, and, make sure you don't have any medical conditions like diabetes or something like that. But it can be a really good thing.
I can barely not eat for like 5 hours.
I know, me too. But, when you do it, and you're growing and young, and you guys, I would say for fasting for you guys, I would keep it to one meal. In high school, it's about as young as I would go with a 30-hour fast. But it's a good way because you know what it feels like to feel really hungry. And there's people in this world who feel that way regularly, and so we can help them because we have a lot of food in our country.
Yeah, we have a lot of food.
Yeah, yes we do. In fact, our problem is I don't know what to eat. We go to a restaurant, I don't know, nothing looks good, Or we go to the grocery store, I can't decide which, kind of soup to get, or, that's power out.
Seriously?
Yep, that's power out.
Come on, Wayne.
Yeah, I was really blowing because those are the emergency lights. Now, unfortunately for you, if you were at school, they would say, bye-bye, go home. But I have a laptop and it's recording on battery, so we're just going to keep going. Sorry. So, Mia and Whit, would you guys go open those blinds though? We'll give us a little more light.
I mean, it was a really
Just
nice
twist
day
them.
until-
We have to pull on one of the ropes. Oh, we got it back. We got power back.
Yay.
That's good.
It was like such a nice day until the wind comes.
Oh, it's going to be windy all day, all the way through tonight. So there are going to be a lot of power lines that go down, I think.
At least we don't have to go tomorrow.
Yep. Okay. Bottom of the page. These commandments involve our thoughts, not just words and actions. They involve our attitudes, intentions, and plans. In the end, the difference between a desire being sinful and not sinful is not really a matter of stuff. It's a matter of the heart. You can have all the stuff in this world and still break this commandment. You can have very little stuff and keep this commandment. I was at seminary years ago, and one of the professors was preaching, and he said, now, how many of you are coveting? They were doing a sermon series on the Ten Commandments. And I go, I don't think I do. He goes, you're all a bunch of poor seminary students. You don't have any money. You think, oh, yeah, we don't break this one. We're good, professor. He says, all right, let me ask you. You drive down the hill and you go into an area, and the community was called Ladue. We might think of like the really expensive parts of maybe El Dorado Hills or Serrano, something like that. And he says, you drive into Ladue and you're there in your old junker car and someone drives up next to you in a brand new Mercedes. He goes, how do you feel? What's going on in your heart then? And we all went, ugh. Broke the commandment.
Can we change it to Lamborghini?
Lamborghini. Oh, I was with David yesterday. We took a drive, and I believe we saw a Lamborghini. He's good with cars. I'm not. He goes, yeah, that's a Lamborghini.
I love Lamborghinis. I want a blue one.
Well, you better get a high-paying job then.
Actually, I want a truck, but a Lamborghini would be cool too.
Yeah.
Become a law lawyer. Lawyer.
Lower?
Lawyer.
Lawyer? Or you got to be a lawyer. Yeah. Is that what you're saying? Yeah. Make
If
a lot
you're
of money
going to be a
that way.
lawyer, you
Yeah.
might need to know how to say it.
Okay, so in the middle of your ring, draw a little heart symbol there.
Yeah.
Because that heart symbol is going to remind you that whether you want it or you need it, the question is really about the attitude of your heart. It's not about some things are bad and some things are good. Because let's say, well, I like to fish, right? So let's say I want to get a new fishing rod, right? Would that be right or wrong? Well, it all depends. Where's my heart with that? Do we need to spend the money as a family for something else, or do we have the money to buy it? That's what it's about. Are we giving money to church as we should? If all those things are fine, then yeah, it would be okay maybe to get that.
There was a pep rally at school. Kevin Arnold, he won $50.
Oh, Kevin Arnold?
Yeah, he won $50.
Oh, nice.
So in my mind, I'm like, here's some to the offering.
Yeah, well, hopefully he's thought of that. Yep. Yeah, when you get your first job, even if it's like pet sitting, my daughter did tons of pet sitting. Think about as soon as you get a job, okay, how can I give a little to the Lord? And give a percentage. Like you might start with 3%. So if you get $10, what would 3%?
We just
10% would be $1, so it'd be 30 cents.
We just learned how to do percents, and it's so boring.
So
I
boring.
surprisingly got a 96 on that.
Good for you.
Really cool.
All right, page 66.
We haven't taken it.
Let's see, who is our next reader?
Yeah.
Emma, have you read yet?
I was the first one to read.
Oh, so we're going
and
that
then
way.
Caroline read.
Oh, okay.
No. Wait, have you read?
So it's Whit's turn,
Because
probably.
remember me.
So it'll be Whit and then Tim. So Whit, would you read at the top of page 66? Well, actually, I'll do that because it's not good for reading stuff. You do the next paragraph. Okay, so we got two boxes. We're going to do two definitions, covet and contentment, and it fits right in with my sermon, so I'm happy about that. So in the left box, question 88 in our catechisms, and that is going to be on, I wrote it down on PowerPoint. It's going to be page 116. We're going to write down a definition for the word coveting, and then we're going to look up a definition for the word contentment and write that in your own words as well. So page 116.
There's glitter all over my book. We were doing Valentine's yesterday.
Glitter is nasty stuff. Just gets everywhere.
I love glitter.
Well, I'm glad you do. Please keep it out of my house.
Oh, yeah.
There's this
We're doing Valentine's.
video, and they make these like fake packages, like put them up.
Oh, yes, I saw that video.
And
That's
then
a
it,
great
like,
thing.
explodes.
He did say, I did see it, read a follow-up to that, and some of the people he got were friends who were acting, like when it was opened. But some of them weren't, and they were actually people who were surprised. They thought they were stealing a package and they got glitter all over
There's some
their house.
people where they put.
Oh, did you see the one they had the fart spray on books?
Yes, I've seen that. Yeah.
Some people put garbage in the box, and then when the people steal it, it's just full of garbage.
Yeah. Well, some put dog poop in there and stuff. Yeah. Yeah, you shall not steal. That's right. So, okay, page 88. What is coveting? So, Whit, you will get to read. Would you please read on? You got enough paper towels and stuff? I can get. Okay, I can get you more. There's some right here if you need it.
Okay,
I just want to. I'll get it for you. So, would you read, please, page 88, or not page 8, question 88, page 116, and that paragraph about coveting?
double.
I just want to make sure you don't get a bunch of cream cheese fingerprints on your books, because that's not good.
It's green.
Ooh, even better, yum. Green garlic is the best. And I'll leave this here in case you need more. All right, so please read.
Okay. Okay, question 88.
Yep.
What is coveting? Coveting is a sinful desire in our hearts to acquire for ourselves anything that belongs to our neighbor. It is also the desire to draw away from our neighbor for our own benefit. Anyone who is important to our neighbor, a spouse, friends, and so on.
Okay, so in that box on page 66 in your workbook, you have to, in your own words, write what coveting is. So what did you hear? What do you think coveting is?
It's a desire that
Wanting
It's
something that your
envy.
neighbor has.
Okay, envy's a part of it. Say that again, Emma.
Wanting something that your neighbor has.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to say it. Wanting something. And I think a key word there too, it says it's the sinful desire. So that sinful wanting. Because if, let's say Tim, he has a Lakers sweatshirt on. Let's say I really want a Lakers sweatshirt. I might look at it and say, oh, I want one of those. But I may not want his. So that's not sinful, is it? I'm just saying I want a Lakers jersey. So it's that sinful desire to get something that belongs to our neighbor.
In a dishonest way, right?
Yeah, although sometimes people are pretty honest about it. They're right up front about that. Hey, will you give me your whatever? Like, no.
So, should I?
Okay, everybody got something there? Okay, let's go to question 89. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, so look up a definition of the word contentment. So I'm seeing that's not in our book. So I'm going to ask Google.
Google's a great thing, guys.
What is contentment?
Here's the definition of contentment: a state of happiness and satisfaction.
Okay? So it says look up a definition of the word contentment and write it in your own words below. And that's in the right-hand box. So contentment.
Could you just do like a state of happiness?
Sure. It says a state of happiness and satisfaction. So content is that feeling like when you're hungry and then you have dinner and your whole body goes, ah.
Or when you're
Or when
cold.
when you're cold
inside.
and you go inside and there's a fire going and you go, ah. Or when you're really tired and you've been up for a long time and you lay down in your bed, right before you sleep you go, ah, yes. It's that feeling of contentment.
Or when you fall asleep.
no, I just close my eyes.
Or when you wake up and you don't have to go anywhere, it's Saturday morning, and you can just sleep, you can sleep in and go, oh yeah, I feel very content, I'm satisfied.
Like tomorrow we get to sleep in because we don't have school.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Tim, would you read that paragraph on page 66? It's kind of the one right in the middle of the page, the big one.
The 9th and 10th commandments are the last two of the 10 commandments. Why do we do the last commandments at the same time? We combine them together because they are very similar and that they both have to do with not being content and coveting. They're different because they have to do with coveting different types of things. In broad terms, the 9th has to do with not being content with your things, and the 10th has to do with not being content with your relationships.
Yeah, so that's a good way to distinguish between the two. Okay, so it says, with this in mind, look over question 89. And again below, we'll write how to fear and love God by not coveting what belongs to our neighbor, and then write how we fear and love God by being satisfied with what God has provided for us. Okay, so Emma's going to read question 89. And why don't you read the 2 little paragraphs that are underneath it, including letter A.
Okay. How do we fear and love God in keeping the 9th and 10th commandments? First, we fear and love God by not coveting the gifts that He has given to our neighbor. This includes not plotting to acquire our neighbor's possessions in a way that appears proper or legal.
Okay. So that appears proper. So it looks okay, but it's not really. In fact, there are some things that are legal to do in the United States that are wrong. Can anybody think of something in the United States that is legal under our laws?
Abortion.
Abortion, yeah. It's legal in the United States to have an abortion, but it's wrong. And so we can make things look legal and proper even when they're wrong. All right? So on the left-hand side, write down in your own words how we fear and love God by not coveting what belongs to our neighbor. So what should we not do according to letter A that Emma just read?
Not wanting.
Well, it's not, but that's not what it says, right?
You can want, you just don't.
What does it say in letter A? It doesn't say not wanting, it says not what?
Plotting.
Plotting. What does it mean to plot?
Plan.
To plan. Whereas Whit would say to come up with an evil scheme, right? So not planning an evil scheme. So write in your own words on the left-hand box. Not coveting means, what am I not going to do? What did we just say? What am I not going to do?
Scheme.
Yeah, not scheme, not plan, to get stuff from my neighbor in a way that looks good, looks legal, right?
I go and blow my nose.
You bet. There's tissues right there, Whit. Okay, so, and look at the Bible readings there, Isaiah 5:8. Woe to those who join house to house, who add field to field until there is no more room. So you just keep on grabbing up all the property. Or Micah 2, woe to those who devise wickedness and work evil on their beds. They're going to sleep and they're thinking, how can I get that sweatshirt from Tim? When the morning dawns, they perform it because it is in the power of their hand. They covet fields and seize them. Do any of you guys remember the story from Sunday school of wicked Ahab and Jezebel and Naboth's vineyard? Anybody remember that? Yep. Jezebel, she was a nasty queen. She was not a God follower, a Yahweh follower. She worshiped Baal. And she got her king husband Ahab to follow Baal as well. He was supposed to, he's an Israelite king, he's supposed to follow Yahweh. And so Ahab goes, I really want Naboth's vineyard. And he's all pouty. She goes, well, stop your pouting. Just go take it. Are you the king or what? And so they actually get some bad guys of bad character to accuse him falsely, and they take him outside and stone him to death. And then the king comes in and says, oh, well, this field used to belong to Naboth, but he's dead. So it'll go into the king's property now. I mean, what a horrible thing. That's coveting, right?
Wait, isn't stoning to death being beat by a stone?
Yep, taking a rock. So in the Old Testament, there were certain crimes that if you committed them and you were found guilty, the method of execution wouldn't be lethal injection like we do today. It would be like if Tim had done something wrong. Sorry to pick on you. But if he had stolen that Lakers sweatshirt, it would be more serious. It would be like adultery would be one, or worshiping Baal. These would be the type of offenses that we, and not that we wanted to do it. I'm sure the Israelites didn't want to, but that he would be taken outside and we would all take rocks and stone him. And the idea was, if we saw that, which one of us would ever do something like that? And so God is saying, stay away from false worship, stay away from idols. It's brutal, and I'm so glad we don't have to do that anymore, but that's what was done.
Does anybody have hand sanitizer?
Do you need to wash your hands? Just go to the bathroom and wash them. Yep.
That's what happened.
Yeah, he's got messy food. That's the problem with Bree. It's yummy, but it's messy. But brie cheese, and then you take garlic cloves and roast them in the oven. Have crackers with brie cheese and garlic cloves.
I don't like that, but my whole entire family does.
Yeah, well, nobody likes everything. Like my daughter and I love oysters, and my dad and my sister did, but my two brothers, my mom, and David and Beth, no way would they eat them. I mean, they'll try them. Beth will try them once in a while, but I love oysters. But a lot of people don't, which means more for me. I'm happy.
Look, you can eat the inside wrapper.
That's gross.
Tastes like
It's
nothing.
pretty good.
Is it sugar? Must be sugar paper. I know they make paper out of sugar.
It says, each candy has an edible inner wrapper that melts in your mouth.
Yeah, it's probably sugar.
It's kind of like one of those mitt things that you like pressed, so you like put it on your tongue or something.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like Paris on God again.
It might. That wind's really blowing, so be careful. Somebody told me before early service today that there was a tree across one of the lanes of Highway 50 up the hill a little ways. They were coming down. It said traffic's down to one lane coming down, so it's bad. I wouldn't be surprised if PG shut off the power because even though we've had some rain, it's really blowing.
I like power outages.
If you have school. But then you have to make up all the work.
Sometimes it's fun. When
Okay.
it's really windy, I just stand there and wait to fall over.
Yeah.
Our school's an overall hills though, so we still have to go to school.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, let's read letter B, and that's going to be Caroline. Would you read letter B?
Yes.
The lights don't work.
I was just in there and they worked.
They won't work for me.
The top part of the switch has to be, and then it's a motion detector. So
Wait, so there's a switch and a motion?
yeah, and they used to take the switch and say, "Don't turn it off," but somebody took the tape off.
It works when I'm in there.
So the top part of the switch should be pressed in, and then walk in a couple feet and wave your arms around.
I wonder if the girls' one works.
Oh, it's sticker just.
It looks like a Chinese
All right,
thing.
Caroline, would you read that for us, please?
Yes, Caroline.
Miss Caroline.
Yeah, so
Does anybody ever say "Sweet Caroline"? The Neil Diamond song. Sweet
There was a
Caroline.
yard
Bum,
last
bum,
year that would
bum.
do it every single time he saw me. And
Yeah.
I got super annoying. But
Yeah.
it's fine.
Yeah, that
I get
would
it.
annoy me.
My high school teachers, when I would write essays, she said, "Oh, you summarized it, didn't you?" Yes, I did. Okay, Caroline, please read.
Not plotting to lure away our neighbor's friend, spouse, or employee.
Yep.
Turn them against our neighbor.
So, have you guys? I've never seen the movie Titanic. Have any of you ever seen that? I've not either.
Heard of it?
So it's like made the most money of any movie ever, or it was in the top 3. And I was talking to a Christian friend of mine, and she actually said she didn't like it. I mean, I'm sure the acting was good, but here's why. The main story is how a woman who's married has an affair with the guy on the ship, and they fall in love. And so that makes it all look romantic and stuff, but then you think, oh yeah, that's wrong. And if there are kids involved, think of the damage done to them. And so that's what this commandment's about too. It's about people. And we don't use language like, Luther did years ago, manservant, maidservant, stuff like that. But it could be a company like employees of a company. If you want to make them an honest job offer, great. But don't, again, that plotting, that scheming, that's what this is about. Okay, so now we'll go to the right box, being satisfied. Mia, would you read, let's see. Oh, by the way, before I go any farther, because we have a little bit extra time today. So there's a great story. Well, maybe that's not the best way to describe it. There's an account in the Bible that's a sad story about King David and a woman named Bathsheba. Have you ever heard this story? 2 Samuel chapter 11. David's middle-aged, so he doesn't go out and fight in battles anymore. And so he's in the palace. The palace is the tallest building in Jerusalem. So if you're on the palace, you see everything below you, right? It's like going up in a tower. And in that day and age, houses were very small. People would think we live in mansions if they, from 2,000, 3,000 years ago. And so people in those days, to have privacy, you would put your bathtub on top of the roof and just go up there and take a bath. And they probably had like a little trellis around or something. And you had privacy because everybody else was downstairs. Well, David looks down, he sees this hot babe, this gorgeous woman taking a bath, and he sends a servant over there, come on over to the palace. So she comes to the palace. And they don't give us details, but he sleeps with her and gets her pregnant. She's married. So he coveted another man's wife. So she, about a month later, which is when ladies kind of find out, I'm not having my period, so I think I'm pregnant. She sends him a message. Hey, I'm pregnant. Uh-oh. Now what do you do?
Bye.
Well, yeah, but he can't tell her bye. She lives in Jerusalem.
Oh, yeah.
So he says, I know what I'll do. Here's the scheming, Whit. He goes, okay, let's see, her husband, he's in the military. I'm going to contact the top general and say, send him, his name is Uriah, send Uriah back home. And he says, Uriah, come to the palace, have dinner with the king. I've chosen you randomly, haha, and I'd like you to give me a report of the battle. And so he does that. And he gives him lots of wine. He says, now, go home, see your wife. And he's thinking, if he sleeps with her, he'll think he's the dad.
Oh.
And, the baby was born a month early. All taken care of, right? Well, Uriah is such an honorable guy. He goes down to the palace steps. It's like being at the White House and sleeping on the steps. And he goes, I'm going to sleep here tonight. So David finds out. He invites him back up the next day for dinner. Gets him way more drunk this time. Go home, see your wife. Oh, no. Well, why would you go home? Well, all the soldiers of Israel, all my buddies, they're out there. They don't get to go home and sleep with their wives. They don't get to enjoy sleeping in their own bed. And my goodness, the Lord himself is out there fighting for the people of Israel. How could I not remember that? So he's a super honorable guy.
I like him.
So I do too. Uriah, by the way, he's not a Hebrew. He's not Jewish. And he's acting more like a good Hebrew than David is, who's a Hebrew. And so David goes, what will I do? What will I do? So he writes a message, and back in those days, they'd roll it up, tie it, and like a scroll, and then they put a wax seal on it, and you take the ring of the king and you put it in there, and like nobody gets to open this except the commanding general. So he writes a letter, and he seals it, and he gives it to Uriah. Take this back to the commander. His name is Joab. What do you think that letter said?
Send Uriah
Worse than kick him out.
into a place where all the fighting is.
Send him to the front lines where the defenders are the best for the other side. Then go and attack and let everybody know except Uriah. Time to withdraw. Retreat. But make sure Uriah doesn't know. He's by himself and he gets killed by the Ammonites. That was the name of the people group. So he's dead. And so Joab, he knows because he's read the letter. David's telling him what he has to do. And Joab sends a messenger back and he says, go tell King David that, boy, we lost some soldiers. And there were more than just Uriah. And he says, if David gets mad, tell him, and by the way, Uriah died. So this servant goes back and says, hey, some soldiers died. And what does David say? Well, that's how war is. Like we would say today, a bullet hits one person but not the next. It just happens. What a liar, right? What a horrible guy. And so now it's probably 7 months later, the baby is born. David has said nothing. He figures problem solved. But God sends a prophet to David. His name is Nathan. And he tells David a story. And he says, hey, David, I got a story for you. Okay. Well, there was this poor man and this rich man. The poor man had one lamb. And he raised it in his home like a pet. His kids fed it in their laps. This rich guy, man, he was loaded. He had flocks and herds. He had hundreds, thousands of sheep, thousands of cattle. Well, the rich guy has a friend coming over to visit. And he says, I want to come for dinner. So the rich guy goes next door to his poor neighbor, takes the guy's lamb, and kills it and feeds it to his friend coming by. And David goes, that man deserves to die. He shall pay him back 4 times. And what does Nathan say? You're the man. I gave you everything. I made you king. I've given you wives. And you go out and take some other guy's wife and you kill him. And so it's just a terrible, terrible story. In fact, the child that was born even died. David fasted for like 6 days. And the child died, wasn't guilty of anything.
Why did he kill the child?
Well, yeah, it's a great question. First of all, the child had done nothing wrong, right? We know that. But secondly, God is saying your actions, David, impact other people. There's no such thing as secret sin. It impacts everybody. Yeah, it's a terrible lesson, isn't it? I mean, God can be very stern sometimes because he wants people to know you can't. What's that?
baby.
They don't say how. It just says he got sick, and he was sick for like 6 days. So it was probably some kind of illness. And then finally the baby died. Yeah, really
What's
sad.
the baby's name?
I don't know. I don't think he's named in there.
Nameless child.
His name?
John Doe. Yep. So anyways, so that's the problem with coveting. So now we're going to read about being satisfied. And Mia's going to read at the top of page 117 about an inch down where it says, second, we fear and love God. And then also read letter A. So page 17 in your catechism, sorry. 117 in your catechism. And it's about an inch and a half down from the top where it says, second, we fear and love God. Toward the top of the page.
Oh, okay.
Second, we fear and love God by being satisfied with what God has provided us and others. This includes being thankful for all that God has given us.
Right, so Hebrews 13:5. Whit, would you read that?
Hebrews 13.
Yeah, it's right there at the top of page 117 in your catechism.
I know. There it is. Keep your life free from love of money and be content with what you have. For he has said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. So we can confidently say, the Lord is my helper. I will not fear. What can man do to me?
All right, so if God's on my side, I shouldn't be afraid, and I shouldn't have to grasp, just like I said in the sermon today, I shouldn't look for things to make me somehow content. All right? And then letter B. Tim, would you read that? It's about in the middle of the page.
Helping others to retain what God has given them, and encouraging their spouse and workers to remain faithful and loyal.
Okay, so in the box on the right side at the bottom of page 66 in your workbook, write how we fear and love God by being satisfied with what God has provided for us and for others.
Being thankful.
What does that mean? So how can we be satisfied? So letter A, being thankful for all that God has given us. So put that in your own words. I mean, you may just use those words because it's pretty basic, but how can we be satisfied?
Being thankful for what God has provided.
Yeah, so let's say you want to get another dog or something at your house, but you might say, well, and your parents say, we really can't afford one right now, or we don't need more animals. Instead of you could be dissatisfied, be all pouty. It's like, whoa, another dog. Or you could say, you know what? I'm thankful for the dog we have. Right? Or if you have, computer games, or, I want to get more computer games. Well, or you could say, I'm thankful for what I have, and I can be content with that.
I want a baby sibling.
Another sister or brother?
I want a brother. I want a baby brother. My parents said no.
Me, I want a brother too.
Yeah. Well, you know what? And our kids said some of those things too, because I've told you guys our kids are adopted. And sometimes it just doesn't work out that way. So here's the thing. You guys in this room are family. Now I know it's not a little brother, because a baby's really fun. But in this church, you have uncles and aunts and grandparents and brothers and sisters in the family of God. And for us, it's been huge because we don't live near much family at all. And so when our kids were little, who would they play with? Well, other kids at church. And when our kids were little, who were people that were like grandpas and grandmas to them? People at this church. There was a guy who died a number of years ago. I'm sure you guys won't know him. But he was kind of like a grandpa for David, because he helped me fix stuff. He was really good with tools and hands, and he could weld and all that stuff. And so I'd go over to his house sometimes, and he was working on a Model A or Model T, I forget which. But I'd bring David with me, and he just...
What was his name?
Jerry Stark. Yeah, he died probably 7 or 8 years ago, so I doubt you guys would remember. But it's just a super nice guy, right?
I had a grandpa that died when I was 5, and he was a welder too. So
Yeah. Okay, so write down how to be satisfied. It's being thankful. And then the second part, letter B, helping others to retain what God's given them. So you help others to keep what is theirs. You don't try to get it away. You help others to keep what is theirs, whether that's people or things. And sadly, in this day and age, just like David and Bathsheba, there are times today where people look at somebody else's wife or husband and they say, well, I would want to be married to that person. I'm going to try and take them away, right? And so you never, ever want to do that. All right, page 67. Where's the line? I think our next reader is going to be you, Emma. Okay. Would you read that paragraph, please?
The 9th and 10th commandments are so tricky. There are healthy desires and sinful desires, and sometimes it's hard to know the difference. We know God's plan for us is that we don't covet our neighbor's things or relationships, or that we find contentment in his creation. Yet we constantly battle our sinful nature that pulls us towards coveting and dissatisfaction. Look through questions 90 and 91.
Okay, so we'll look through those, and then Caroline, you're going to read the next paragraph. But first we'll look through questions 90 and 91 in our catechism. So 90, how are we tempted to be dissatisfied with what we have? Peer pressure, even advertising, often encourages us to be dissatisfied with what we have. We crave other things in order to keep up appearances or to look for happiness and satisfaction in something new. So lots of commercials at the Super Bowl, if you watch that. Some of them were hilarious, some of them, not so good.
Baby Peanut died, or Mr. Peanut died.
But Baby Peanut came back, so he's not really dead. He's like Groot, okay?
Oh, Groot is the best.
I am Groot, right? Okay, so what advertising encourages us to have things that we don't really need? Can you think of one? What?
The Doritos ads. I used to love them ads.
The mouse?
So he puts a Dorito in a mouse trap by a mouse hole. And he's waiting. This giant mouse just jumps on top of him and starts beating him up. He's like sitting on a lawn chair just waiting for this thing to come out.
Huh.
The Cheeto ad where he uses like a black light and there's Cheetos all over his family and the cat, and he's like, "You ate my Cheetos."
Interesting. So what are they trying to get you to do?
Buy the Cheetos.
Buy Cheetos, right. Now, is it wrong to buy Cheetos to eat? No. So where would it turn to coveting, where advertising would encourage us to be dissatisfied with what we have and want something that we don't really need? Because we all got to eat, right? So sometimes eating Cheetos is going to be a good thing. How about cars?
I don't need
What
it.
do commercials do to make us think we got to have a new car?
They make it.
You get a sale.
You save
This has
2%
these.
Say that again, Caroline?
You save 2% of your money buying this new car with
Okay.
zero sales.
But why should I want it? I already have a car. Mia, why should I want this car if I already have one?
Because it looks better and it's like more upgraded.
Yes, more upgrade, more up to date. So like my truck, no Bluetooth. It's got a CD player in it, but no Bluetooth. No padded and heated, or padded seats, but no heated seats. What else?
There's heated seats in cars.
Yeah.
You didn't know that? They're in like a
Yeah.
Tahoe.
They have little heaters in them so your little tushy can stay warm when it's cold in the winter, right?
Heater seats in the front in our Pilot. That's why I like that I get to sit in the front.
Yep. Okay, so something like that. Do I when I bought this truck I had, actually, it's been a really good truck, and this guy was trying to sell me one that cost more. It's like, I don't have the money. I'm not going to spend more. And he said, but this one has, I think he said heated mirrors and one other thing. And I go, I've been driving for 20 years. I've never needed them. And he didn't really have anything to say. So he's trying to get me to be dissatisfied with the car I wanted to buy by offering me extra stuff that I didn't need.
Why do you need money?
Because it's the outside side mirrors. So on a cold day, if they fog up, you can press a button. Actually, I ended up getting that's the one thing my truck has heat mirrors. So I get to push a button and it defrosts them. So that's kind of nice.
Like my dad's truck, he's had it for a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
But like part of the back is like ripped off,
Yeah.
and the seats are all ripped, and the mirrors are all like gross. And he's been looking for a new one, not like brand new, like a used one.
Good used one, sure.
But he couldn't find one that was like in the range he wanted, because he likes it so much. But now it's like all broken down, and but he just can't find one that.
Yeah, he'll find one eventually. Right, so advertisers will make us want some, or like chocolate. Is it wrong to eat chocolate? Of course not. It's a food God made. I love chocolate. I love dark chocolate. But you know, if I eat too much, then my intestine goes, we're not happy, right? And so, but a commercial might say, dark chocolate with, cherries with it, and all that. And so, like, I want something that I don't need, and that's.
I had a basketball game, and they give snacks after, and there's this thing called Choco Rooms, which it was like a breadstick and dark chocolate shaped like a mushroom, and I had one. It was good, but I didn't want the rest.
No, and that's not something to get after exercise. That's something to have dessert after dinner.
That's
Choco shrooms. I love it.
Choco shrooms.
People will think of
Chocolate
anything.
shaped like a mushroom.
Yeah, weird. Okay, question 91. Is all wanting, desiring, and ambition sinful? No, God encourages us to seek his blessings of food, shelter, good jobs, health, success, and so on for ourselves and our family. Okay, and then they have a Bible verse after that. Okay, so God wants to give us what we need, right? He loves us. It's just like your parents at Christmas or your birthday. They want to give you stuff that you need, but also that you want. I remember when I was a kid, sometimes for Christmas, I'd get clothing for my birthday, Christmas. It's like, that's not very fun. But my mom knew I needed it, but they'd also get me something that was fun, like a book or a game or whatever.
I love clothes.
Yeah, I know. But I'm a guy. It's like clothes, yay.
Yeah,
If I could wear jeans and t-shirts to church, I would.
You guys were like shorts and a t-shirt. Us girls have to actually dress up. Like
That's right. Yeah, I remember my
That's why
wife.
we
She
like
said, "Well, we should look for like some outfits for you." And I go, "What's an outfit?"
Why?
She goes, "What you wear." And I go, "It's clothes." But you have to have things fit together. It was the wonderful world of marriage. Like, huh? So it's something new for me. Okay, so now, Caroline, we're to that paragraph I was going to have you read on page 67 of our workbooks. It's the second paragraph at the top of the page.
This image of a tightrope walker is a good illustration of our situation. A tightrope walker must balance on a thin wire and try not to fall off. Let's imagine that this tightrope is God's plan for his human creatures that we not covet. On or around the image of the pole below, write down or draw using question 91 as a guide, but adding to it as well different desires in our lives that are good.
So write some good stuff there. So what is some good stuff that we might desire, want, things like that. So different desires in our lives that are good. And you can use question 91. Remember, I just read it.
Oh yeah. Oh, we have to pull it back.
Yep, it's at the bottom of page 117 in your catechism. So write down
Food, shelter,
somewhere around the guy on the tightrope. By the way, they walk on a cable, not a wire. It's a lot thicker than wire. It's still thin,
Why is he
though.
running?
Because he's really good, I guess.
Why does he have a stick?
To balance?
Yep. The Walenda family, I want to say Nick, he has made several videos with ABC News. One was he was walking across the Grand Canyon. I have it on my computer somewhere. But he's a Christian, and he prayed the whole way across. So he's on this news show giving witness to Jesus. I thought it was really awesome. And he was about a quarter mile above the ground with no safety net.
What?
No? Thank you.
Yeah, thank
I
you.
want.
for sure.
I want to see that video.
Well, if we get done before 2, I'll show it to you guys.
What if he falls?
He didn't fall, but he would have died.
Why would he even do that?
I wouldn't do that.
Because that's just what their family's done it for like 120 years. They've been trapeze or tightrope walkers.
Even if my family did it, I still wouldn't do it.
No, I wouldn't.
I'd be like, I'm not risking my life to walk on a rope.
So what did you guys come up with?
Giant chocolate bars.
Okay, chocolate bars,
Shelter,
shelter,
food, jobs,
jobs,
Yeah.
health.
health, success. Yep. So those are all good things. Now, Mia, would you read the paragraph under the word sin on page 67?
Now around the image of the tightrope walker, write or draw different temptations that try to get us to fall off and sin against the 9th and 10th commandments. Add as many as you can.
Okay, so you can use question 90 there to help you. So what are some things, some temptations that you could write or draw to try and get you to covet? And you can use question 90 as a help there toward the bottom of page 117.
My pencil's so loud.
It's not too bad. All right, what did you guys come up with? What are some things that tempt us away?
Peer pressure.
Okay, what does that mean? What is peer pressure? We didn't talk
Like,
about that.
Pushing someone to do something like, no, go do it. I'll give you this amount.
Okay, that's kind of like daring somebody. Peer pressure is a little different.
Peer pressure is like if someone's like, here, you gotta try this. If it's like something bad, they're like, all of us are doing it. Like, it's cool, it's fun. Like, why won't you do it?
So how would that be for coveting? Because I could see peer pressure like, oh, you should try the drugs, but we're talking about coveting. So how could peer pressure, you ladies have a tough time with this. I think it's harder for guys. What were we just talking about for ladies? Clothing, right? And so what if most of your friends start wearing a certain brand? You know, there's going to be this, there's going to be this little bit of pressure that can grow. It's like, oh.
And then,
now, some schools and some friends are that way, some aren't, and hopefully yours aren't. But I know when I was in school, a long time ago, that was when designer clothes first started coming out, and there was this big thing with jeans. There was one brand of jeans that had a little triangle on the back pocket. It's not a triangle, it's a rectangle. But anyways, they had a triangle, right? And it put like the person's name, the designer's name. And all of a sudden those became really popular. And you'd start noticing, she's got it, he's got it, everybody's buying these jeans. I don't have those. You know, it makes you feel like I should get those.
well, like if everybody has them, and then somebody's like, wow, you're wearing those jeans?
Yeah,
those
you
are
have those.
so old.
Yeah,
like,
nobody wears
look
those
at
anymore.
These.
Yeah.
That'll make you
So
really want.
peer pressure's one. What's another one that tempt you away from
I just said having we crave the latest things.
having the latest things, right? Video games for guys, right? Oh, do you have the latest release of Call of Duty? It's Call of Duty 27 or whatever it is, right? Dude, it's awesome. Oh, I have Call of Duty 3.
I don't even know these video games.
Yeah, that's okay.
Oh, I know Minecraft.
Yeah,
That's my world.
I don't play video games.
and that's okay with, you know.
Yeah, I know.
You know, it's I have mixed feelings on video games.
Yeah.
But anyways, peer pressure can do that. Advertisers, right? I got to have that car. And so there's lots of things. Okay, reflection. Look at the things you wrote or drew in the space above. What is the biggest temptation in your life right now that tries to get you to commit the sin of coveting either things or relationships? Circle it. Okay, so try to find one that's a big temptation for you and circle it. You don't have to tell us, but you can just circle it. And then think about, why is that such a temptation? So some people, peer pressure really gets to them. It's really hard for them to not be influenced by their friends who buy certain things or even say certain things. Or for other people, it's like a commercial. They go, oh, I want that. I want to download that album. It's so good. You know, or look at that. Look at that coat. That coat rocks. You know, I want that. Or that computer. I gotta have. Or did you see the new iPhone? Oh man, I want that so bad. Right?
I always want the iPhones, but my parents
I don't
never
like
let
the
me.
iPhone.
They're super expensive.
I don't
I
like
know.
the iPhone.
You can pay $1,200
It
for an
looks
iPhone
not
today.
the iPhone 11
You could buy
kinda-
two desktop computers.
The iPhone 11 kind of looks like a stove.
What?
It looks like a stove.
That's awesome, Caroline. All right, I'm not gonna have you share with those, but I just want you to think about what tempts you. And so, if you think about it, then you can think about, well, how could I avoid that? So if I'm tempted by peer pressure, then I probably need to avoid certain groups of friends. If they start talking about something, then it's time to just maybe walk away. Oh, I got to use the restroom, or oh, I got to get to class, or whatever. Or if it's advertisers, maybe I need to watch a little less TV. Or if a commercial comes on, I mute it. And I go in the kitchen, talk to my dad or something like that. All right? Let's turn the page 68.
We're almost done.
We're almost done, which is good because we got about 12 minutes. It is Domino's.
I like Domino's.
The 9th and 10th commandments are at the end to remind us that if we think we can keep God's law through the 8th commandments, by the 10th commandments we know we certainly can't. Somebody said that. What do you think of this statement? Is it true? Why or why not? So if we think we can keep all 8 commandments, I've not murdered anybody, I haven't committed adultery, I've only worshiped God, I've remembered the Sabbath day, how do the 9th and 10th tell us that, yeah, you can't keep the commandments?
Because everyone wants.
Everybody wants something. Yeah, that's how we are. Yep.
Just we are, guys.
Sorry, yep, that's how we are. All right, is Whit our next reader, or did Mia not read?
I did.
Okay, so Whit, would you read where it says read question 92? It's right above the dominoes in your book. All right, let's have Tim read. I'll come back to you, Whit. He's got a mouthful. So, Tim, would you read that paragraph?
Read question 92. We're reminded that breaking the 9th and 10th commandments, though they seem so small, always lead us back to more commandments. This is like one domino falling, coveting, which leads to another domino falling, bearing false witness. This usually creates a chain reaction of sin that ultimately leads us not to love God and not to love our neighbor, which means that we aren't following God's plan for our lives.
So let's talk about David, because I told you the story. So his first sin was coveting, right? He coveted another man's wife. So what's the next sin? What did he do next?
He pretty much committed murder.
Well, before that, though, let's run through see how many commandments we can get. What did he do? He saw this hot babe. She's taking a bath. What did he do
He
next?
committed adultery.
Adultery, right. So he said, come on over to the palace, hey, lady, right? And so, hola, chica, right? So he has her come to the palace. And, and he has her come to the palace. So he lusts, he commits adultery. So that's a second commandment, okay? And then he sleeps with her, and she gets pregnant. And so what does he do next after she gets pregnant?
Commits murder.
Before that, you're jumping way ahead. What does he do next? What's the next thing that he does? What did he do in the story?
He tries to harm his neighbor.
Nope, that's later. What did he do next? Just don't tell me what commandment. Just what did he do? She's pregnant. What did he do? He didn't lie.
No. He tried to get Uriah really, really drunk.
So he'd go home and sleep with his wife, right? So, yeah, so then we get to the lying business, right? So he brings Uriah home, and he's saying, oh, go home. So he's lying. He's bearing false testimony against his neighbor. He's trying to get him to go home, okay? So then what does he do when that doesn't work after 2 days? He sends Uriah back. What does he do?
He tries to
Kills him.
What does he put in his hand?
little
Little letter, right?
Oh,
It's
yeah.
sealed.
and punches it, put it into.
And what's his general supposed to do?
Open it and do it.
Tell him not to.
Tell them to put Uriah in the front where the defender.
front line,
and
yeah.
Tell them to retreat, whatever.
Retreat.
It's called, retreat. And
Yes.
have Uriah killed.
That's right. So then that's called, and law enforcement officers call that conspiracy to commit murder. So conspiracy, and then he commits murder. So there's the 5th commandment, right? You shall not kill. So he does that, and then he finds out about it. Says, oh, people die. It's just the way it goes. So he's lying again. So he's breaking that commandment again, and then he says nothing for 7 more months till the child's born. He was never going to say anything. So that commandment to not lie, he's breaking for months, almost a year, right? And then and so what other commandments is he breaking? How about you shall have no other gods? Is he loving the Lord his God with all his heart? No, not at all. He's lying to God as if God didn't know, right? When he goes to worship, he goes down to the temple. How do you think he felt when he was worshiping? Had to be feeling kind of hypocritical, right? It's like, I'm living a lie. Here, God, I love you so much, but I killed a guy. Yeah.
I think a little oops.
Yeah, so he broke pretty much all 10 commandments. He misused the name of the Lord his God. Oh, yeah, I believe in God. I follow Yahweh. Oh, yeah. But I slept with another man's wife. I lied about it. I got him murdered, and now I'm not saying anything. Really, really
He's
bad.
holding it against himself.
So that's why coveting is a big deal, because it brings all these other commandments into play.
Bad David.
Very bad, David. So that's why, as a pastor, I don't buy the books that you see in the Christian bookstore. Well, they don't even have bookstores now, hardly. But it says, heroes of the Bible. Samuel, David, Paul, Peter. If you read the stories of all those guys, every single one of them,
Has a bad day.
they sin. They're just like us. In certain ways, they're great people who did wonderful things for the Lord, but they're just like us. They made pretty bad mistakes. Okay, so think about it. Bottom of the page. All right, Whit, you're going to read that for us. Bottom of page 68, where it says, think about it.
Think about it.
Ultimately, the point is that God has a plan for us. As his human creatures, and we all fail. We sin and we simply can't do it right. We still try to follow his plan because it's good, but we need forgiveness when we fail, which is why we need Jesus.
So just as we finish the commandments today, and we'll talk more about them next week with Unit 17, I just want to remind you, does God love you because you keep the commandments? No, he does not. He loves you because of Jesus. And so he wants us to keep the commandments, But he doesn't love you if you've been good any more than the day before if you didn't keep the commandments.
He
Yeah.
loves you the same
Would-
as everyone else.
Would he love us even if Jesus didn't save our sins?
Well, he loved us before Jesus died for us, right? John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. So God loved the world and everybody in it before Jesus died for us.
Oh, and he brought him in because he loved us.
Exactly. Yep. He's loved us since before he made us. It's amazing.
Very smart.
Yeah, he
Big
probably like planned the whole thing for like a long time.
He did.
And then
He knows
finally
our whole life.
created.
The book of Ephesians says before the world was created, God was thinking about saving you. Isn't that amazing?
He
Sit
knows
down.
our lives.
Sit down. You're not going anywhere. We're going to pray. And I'm going to show you this video if I can find it.
He knows our life story, but like he knows what's gonna happen in our lives, but when it's gonna happen.
Wit,
How does he remember that many
There's
people?
like
he's
a
God.
lot.
Think about this. He's way beyond understanding. God thought up everything.
His brain.
The solar system, the galaxy,
His brain.
the universe. I've got a book
He gets an A+.
that says he totally gets an A+. It says that we estimate there's 100 billion galaxies with an estimated 100 billion stars in each galaxy. He had that in his mind. He thought of that and spoke it into existence. That's so far
That could be
beyond.
100 billion galaxies.
He's smarter than Albert Einstein because
Oh, way
he
smarter.
created
Yeah.
Albert.
Smarter than Stephen Hawking. Yep.
Oh my gosh, his brain must be like,
Yeah. Yeah. Except God's not. Jesus has a brain, but that's his human nature. God is spirit, and so his intelligence is infinite. And it's all around us. I mean, I feel sorry for evolutionists, even though that sometimes they try to make me mad, because the evidence is all around them in the way the human eye works and the brain, and that there's a designer, and they just refuse to see it. All right, we're going to pray. We'll start with Tim. We'll come around to me. And so just a short prayer of thanks for something or asking for something. You can pray for rain because we need that, or for a family member, or whatever. I don't like it either, but we need it. All right, Tim, take it away.
Dear God, please help that we get rain and that the wind stops.
Whit, your turn.
Dear Lord, thank you for everything that you've given us. Thank you that we're able to come to confirmation and learn.
Dear Lord, thank you for all things that you give us, even the things that we don't actually need. Dear Lord, thank you for giving us what we need and what we don't really need.
dear Lord, please help my grandpa get better, and just thank you for everything.
Jesus, I thank you so much for each of these students. We pray for the Edlin family. There's lots of sickness there. And I pray you would help me to be thankful for what I have and not covet other things. Amen.
Amen.
Right, I'm going to see.
Oh my gosh, my friend texted me an hour.
Speaking the truth in love, we are to grow up in every way into Him who is the head, into Christ.
Right, so Paul's talking to the church. He says it's plural, so y'all, rather than speaking the truth in love, we are to grow up in every way. So here we have another interesting thing here. Swap your student book with a partner and use the space below to the drawings to write about a time where people might be challenged to speak the truth in love in a particular situation. Then swap your books back. Read the situation that your friend wrote for you in your book and respond by writing how you could respond to the situation. When you have finished writing, share your responses with each other. So so take your book and just pass them one to the right. So Tim passes his book to the right, Whit to the right, Caroline to the right. So go to Tim. He'll do it.
Oh, I like this book. Can I keep it?
Nope. Yeah, the ones with the wire bound are much nicer. That's how they're making them now. And then the pages lay flat. Okay. So when would it be challenging to speak the truth in love? And our first box is with a phone, right? So there's cameras, there's Facebook. I don't know what the little bird is for.
Twitter.
Is that Twitter? Nobody uses Twitter anymore, right? Instagram is real popular. Anyways, so So think about a time you might be challenged to speak the truth in love. So just write a situation that would deal with some kind of, and if you don't have a cell phone, that's fine. Think of a regular phone, so that you might get on the phone and talk. You could gossip over the phone or something like that. Okay?
I don't actually call anybody except my dad on the phone.
Yeah, that's okay.
So,
Then think about people who are older and walk around with their phone all the time and use them all the time.
Wait, you're gonna love my drawing.
yeah.
So the particular situation is with phone or internet or email or texting or anything like that.
So about a time you'd be challenged.
Yeah, so make up a situation. So for me, it might be, I might say, my friend texted me a rumor about Bob, and so now I have a choice. Do I forward the text or not? So that would be an example. So come up with something that way.
Could you draw?
I might be challenged is.
Which you want the person whose book it is to be able to read it. So if you draw something, make sure it's really crystal clear and easy to understand.
Yeah, one
Like,
thing
can you
would
draw
be
a
if
person?
I don't like so and so, then I'd be challenged to do the right thing.
Like,
Right, but the
can
next
you-
person's going to have to fill that in. So right now you just give the problem. You don't give the solution.
Can you say,
Oh.
can you draw a person gossiping, like calling someone?
Right,
And
but-
then another person.
But you
like-
should put the word gossip in there because it's not your book and they need to know that that person is gossiping. Okay, so you could just write the word gossip there. That would be fine.
And then like another person saying, like, or
You don't give
making
the
up.
answer. Your job is not to give the answer. You give the challenge, the problem. So all you're doing here, to use your example, Caroline, your example would be someone on the phone and you could have a little bubble that comes that says gossip, 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 gossip. That's all you would do. Lie, lie, lie. That's right. Yep. It doesn't have to be a work of art.
I'm drawing stick figures.
Yeah, that's what I do. And when you're done, pass the book to the right one more time. Yep, that's good.
Kind of liked it.
Okay,
Don't judge it.
no judging. Now what you're going to do, you're going to do the same exact thing you just did, except this time you're going to go on box number 2. So the box number 2 is a school. So you're going to write or draw a situation that would be a challenge at school. This one you might need to write because it's going to be hard to draw. Okay, it's done. Okay, so same thing. So this time, what would be the challenge when you were at school to speak the truth in love? Okay, so a challenging situation at school to speak the truth in love. So it could be people getting mad at recess. It could be people lying about someone. When you're done, then pass the book to the right again, because that'll be back to the person's original book. Okay, and so when you get your book back, choose one of the two situations there, and then
So weird.
choose one of the situations that's there, and write how you could respond. Okay? And if you need extra space, just find a place on the page. So you're going to take one of those two situations and find, write a way that you could respond.
What are their eyes? What are their eyes made of?
Whose?
Mine? Eyes.
Really?
They look like empty sockets.
I don't know.
Well, you can draw in the eyeballs later.
That's better.
Okay, so pick one. We got about 2 minutes, so pick one and write how you could respond to the situation.
Timmy, can you read this to me?
I know, I don't have the handwriting. Right here.
Wait, is that Tim's?
Wait, which
This
one?
is Tim's, this is yours.
Wait.
Can you read mine?
If I don't sound,
Yes,
what should
Well,
I
I
tell the truth?
Wait, this?
Great grammar. No, this.
Oh. You might be challenged to tell the truth when you get a message from a friend that says a rumor and you don't know what to do, and that says, like, text message.
Okay, so you get a message from a friend with a rumor. What should I do? So then you would, if you choose that one, you would write how you might respond.
What about that bottom box? The one with the family?
Well, that's a third one you can do, but
You might not have to.
yeah, we don't have time today.
How do we not have time? You said we have plenty of time.
We do, but their mom's coming at 10 till 2, because I told her we'd be done really early. I told your dad too, so if she waits a couple minutes, it's no big deal. I know. Well, or we could play pool. All right, so that's unit 15. I'm going to stop the recording.
This video, and this guy is trying to get eels out of holes. So he pours Coke, Mentos, and eggs into an eel hole. He just pours
smart.
3 bottles of Coke, 3 packs of Mentos, and a ton of eggs.
It boils them out.
And then just flushes the dirt up. There's like 50 eels coming out of this one hole.
That's gross.
See that?
It's so funny
very
because
true.
he's like,
All right, so let's wrap up here.
3 minutes.
Yep. So I'm going to stop the recordings, but we'll do our